All right, let's bring into this conversation Franco Ordonez in Washington. He's a White House correspondent for McClatchy News. And Caitlin Huey-Burns is a CBSN political reporter. Caitlin, let me start with you and just get your take on what we heard there from Senator Collins. She said that she doesn't know enough about Dr. Ford and her allegations yet to reach any kind of judgment as to whether or not she believes Dr. Ford. And she said that's why she wants to have that opportunity to observe her being questioned.
Right, and the reason we're focused on Collins is because she is a potential swing vote. Remember, the margin of error for confirming a Supreme Court justice is so narrow that Republicans really need to hold their entire conference. And I've been talking to some Republican strategists today who say that whatever happens with Kavanaugh, this incident, this reporting of the incident could provide political cover for red state Democrats who might have otherwise crossed the aisle to hold with the Democratic caucus. So you've seen Democrats really holding together and calling for a delay in this, calling for public testimony. Interestingly, Collins also called for testimony under oath. Some of her Republican colleagues have been trying to kind of thread the needle here. They've been trying to say, yes, any allegations should be brought forward, but they're also questioning the motives of Democratic Judiciary Vice Chair Dianne Feinstein for the reason for the timing of this. So you're seeing them kind of thread that needle a little bit.
Franco, let me get your take as well, because our Nancy Cortez, chief congressional correspondent for CBS News, asked Senator Collins, you heard off the bat, Senator, do you need to see a public hearing featuring Ford before you vote on Kavanaugh? And essentially her answer was yes. What are your thoughts listening to Senator Collins and seeing the political landscape such as it is right now?
I mean, it's a very perilous landscape right now. I think Susan Collins really hit the key point towards the end of that questioning when she said that it's a matter of whether there's truth to the allegations and whether Judge Kavanaugh is not telling the truth. And I think that's the point that's really going to be the determining factor, whether this is some type of trying to stop this from happening. He's been very emphatic that this is not real, this is not true, given out multiple statements. The White House has come to his defense. And it's interesting, you played the clip earlier from Kellyanne Conway. President Trump also has very calmly said that, you know, she should be heard, we should hear it. If there's a little bit of a delay, that's okay.
Well, so Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell addressed the allegation against Judge Kavanaugh on the Senate floor Monday. Let's listen to some of what he said.
In the Senate and around the country, almost everyone who went into this process with an open mind, who was prepared to give Judge Kavanaugh a fair hearing, has come away impressed. But now an accusation of 36-year-old misconduct dating back to high school has been brought forward at the last minute in an irregular manner. It is an accusation which Judge Kavanaugh has completely and unequivocally denied.
So McConnell says the GOP will review the accusation against Kavanaugh by the book and seek interviews. Franco, how important is it for Republicans in the White House that they get Kavanaugh confirmed by October 1st?
It's very important. I mean, they are eager to get this done. They do not want it delayed. Democrats are trying to throw everything they can to delay this and stop this and see if they can get a little bit more control of the situation. That said, there seems to be at least some confidence that this could still go through and that they will still be able to get this. You know, the late coming through for this, these allegations certainly complicates matters. But as we heard with Susan Collins and Murkowski and others, they certainly want to have this done. You know, Orrin Hatch is talking about saying that Kavanaugh insists that, you know, Ms. Ford is mistaken and this may have been someone else. But that's what these hearings will be about if they come to fruition.
I mean, Caitlin, what is the political calculus here for Senate Republicans as they decide whether or not they want to go ahead on Thursday with this vote or hold a public hearing? Because we should note that the Senate Republican members of the Judiciary Committee are all men.
Right.
So if you are factoring in what would this look like, you would have Brett Kavanaugh, you would have the accuser, all testifying before a panel in which the Republicans are all men that are going to be questioning the accuser.
Right, and so that's why there's a big question about whether, in fact, this would be a public hearing, whether it would be behind closed doors. The Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley is still trying to figure everything out. It's really hard to see them actually having a vote on Thursday, just given that multiple members of the committee have raised concerns, have Jeff Flake, of course, chief among them. He's on that committee. So it's difficult to see them actually getting that all together by Thursday, especially since they are not even in on Wednesday in the Senate. So this certainly seems like it's headed for some kind of delay. But Republicans right now on the Hill and inside campaigns across the country are trying to kind of game this out and figure out where this goes next. There are so many unknowns, they say. Meanwhile, Democrats are really coalescing around the accuser and are, calling for the hearings to be delayed. They're pretty united on that front. And so you're going to see them kind of stake out their positions there.
Franco, let me pose the same question to you. What essentially are the pros and cons here, if you're a Republican, to having a public hearing with Kavanaugh's accuser?
It is very dangerous for Republicans to come across as not taking these allegations seriously. Let's remember back in the Anita Hill hearings, where Anita Hill took a lot of criticism. If the Republicans do not treat this seriously, you have a very serious risk of not only women voters, but also male voters coming out and really, making them pay the price in the midterms in November. It was 1992, after the Anita Hill hearings, whereas one of the biggest, largest women in Congress were voted into seats. And I'm pretty sure that Republicans and many people feel that was because of the Anita Hill treatment. I don't think that's what Republicans are looking for.
Caitlin, a moment ago you talked about Senator Feinstein coming under some criticism for the timing of all of this, and she has been criticized for not releasing information earlier. What is your sense? Could the rushed nature of this have been avoided if she had decided to handle this differently?
Well, the argument has been that the accuser didn't want her name to be out there, that when you read now what's been made public of that letter that she wrote to Feinstein and to her representative in California. So there is a question of that. Democrats are trying to argue that the process at this point doesn't matter. What matters are the accusations, and they are taking them credibly and also trying to put pressure on Republicans to do the same. And Republicans are saying that they want to hear from her. They want to hear more about this, but they are also, again, raising questions about the political nature of this. This is an extremely high stakes fight for both parties involved because, of course, a Kavanaugh nomination could reshape the makeup of the Supreme Court. And this is something that we've seen has been proven to galvanize Republican voters in midterms and in presidential years. Democrats are trying to achieve some kind of parity with that, getting Democratic voters enthused about things like judicial picks. So this is why so much is at stake for both parties, but especially Republicans, because they've been using Kavanaugh as their calling card in this midterm election, trying to remind voters that are Republicans or even independent voters that we are, shaping the makeup of the Supreme Court. And even if you don't like Trump, at least we're getting that done. And this could potentially jeopardize that messaging.
And Franco, to follow up on Caitlin's point, so Judge Kavanaugh's confirmation was supposed to bolster the president and his party ahead of midterms. Who now do you think is in a more precarious position right now, Republicans or vulnerable Senate Democrats?
I mean, I think that's a great question. I mean, I think we shall see in the next week how this situation. Democrats also have to be very careful in coming forward with these allegations and pushing too hard. These allegations are over 3 decades old, so they do not want to come across as not respecting, the SCOTUS pick, the Supreme Court pick. At the same time, Democrats have been, voters have been very concerned that Democrats were not fighting the Kavanaugh pick hard enough. During the confirmation hearings, we heard a lot from some Democrats on the more left liberal side who felt like Democrats were not fighting enough, bringing a so-called butter knife to a gunfight. And it wasn't until one of the last days of the hearing where we saw people like Cory Booker fight off. So I think they certainly want a harder fight now.
Well, let me follow up, Franco. We know that Judge Kavanaugh was at the White House Monday, but President Trump says he did not speak with him. Why wouldn't he actually speak with him?
I can't say why he wouldn't speak with them, but they are certainly taking very care in making sure that they handle this appropriately, saying that they are continuing to defend Kavanaugh. Trump's comments today, completely backed Kavanaugh. At the same time, they're saying, look, let's have this hearing. If it's delayed, that's okay. I think they know that this is very dangerous politically for them. They need this to go okay. They do not want any type of retribution in the midterm. So I think they're being very careful knowing the political implications.
Widening out a little bit here, Caitlin, President Trump, we know, is holding rallies in Nevada on Thursday and Missouri Friday. Former President Obama is going to be holding a rally for Democrats in Pennsylvania Friday, and we'll be less than 50 days away from midterms at that point. What do you think right now? With all of this, with all these other developments sort of in the background, what do you make of the states that both President Trump and former President Obama are now targeting?
Well, it'll be very interesting to see them out on the trail at the same time. And of course, President Trump has been trying to outstage President Obama. His whole midterm campaign strategy in terms of his public appearances has been designed by the White House to overperform Obama's appearances on the campaign trail for Democrats during his presidency. What's really interesting about the states they picked, Trump is going to Nevada, which of course is having a major Senate race. Republican Dean Heller is the incumbent senator there in really the race for his life. This is a state that has been trending blue. Democrats have been winning it for a while on the presidential level. There's also a competitive House race that they're looking at there, and the president has endorsed in both of those races. And then you look at Pennsylvania, and that's a state that Democrats lost in the 2016 election, but we have seen some momentum for Democrats in that state. The Senate race there isn't as competitive as it should be, given that Trump won it. A Democrat, Bob Casey, is up for re-election there, so the president will be campaigning for him. And there are also several congressional seats that are now in play in Pennsylvania, really tough seats. There's been some redistricting there too, which will change the dynamic of some of these. So the current president is trying to galvanize his base ahead of the midterms, and former President Obama is trying to galvanize Republicans. The time that they're both out there, they could kind of neutralize one another. So we'll see kind of what exactly this does and whether their support is actually transferable to down ballot candidates. Traditionally, that's not the case.
Yeah, I mean, Franco, that's a huge question, right? Whether or not the power of the presidency or the former president is actually going to translate down ballot.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's a big question. I mean, there's so much of the midterms is about how much you can get your base to come out. Trump obviously is pushing very hard, telling his supporters that they need to come out, or else his policies are at risk. Obama is doing something very similar, saying if you do not come out and vote for Democrats, then we are not going to have the type of oversight that Democrats need. Those are the very personal messages that both the president and the former president are bringing out, and it will be absolutely interesting to see which message carries along. Obviously, midterms are usually harder for incumbent presidencies, but Trump has been effective, and he's proven a lot of polls and traditions wrong. So we'll see.
Meantime, Hillary Clinton wrote a new piece, Caitlin, in The Atlantic called "American Democracy is in Crisis." In it, she slams Republicans and the president. Is she playing any role in the midterms this year? If so, how should we think about that role?
Well, she has been becoming more vocal. She's been weighing in on issues on Twitter, and she has weighed in on things like the Kavanaugh nomination. She's also been fundraising a little bit. She still is someone who is, very toxic among Republican voters, certainly, and among Democrats who we've seen through this primary cycle, have chosen, younger people in the party, some more progressive voices. And so it's not as if because she was the nominee of the Democratic Party for the presidential race in 2016, she is not really considered among the party to be the leader of it. And we've seen that anytime she inserts herself in the public debate, Republicans certainly seize on that. They'll need to, because they are trying to appeal to independent voters or soft Republican voters who may not like Trump, may be dissatisfied with his rhetoric and his presidency, but they also will be used, Clinton will be used as kind of a specter to try to remind them about what they thought during the 2016 election. So we'll see how that plays out.
And in fact, Franco, we hear Hillary Clinton's name a lot, don't we, when we're listening to President Trump at rallies. I mean, she may not be the leader of the Democratic Party to some people, but President Trump certainly brings her name up continuously when he's out campaigning.
No, absolutely. I mean, there's a few things that really get his crowd going at rallies, whichever rally you pick. And Clinton, the name Clinton is certainly one that you continue to hear a lot. You still hear rallies of lock her up, the same kind of very harsh rhetoric that we heard during the campaign. This issue, like immigration and others, Clinton is something that the president continues to run on. So I agree with Caitlin. There's kind of a double-edged sword here for Clinton to be coming out. At the same time, there's no question that Democrats at this moment are kind of lacking in a leadership. They have a bit of a vacuum here, and they're looking for someone to fight. And, here she is fighting.
All right, Franco Ordonez and Caitlin Huey-Burns, my thanks to you both. Appreciate it.
Thank you.